You can't see it right now, but there is a fly in this room, and every now and then it just appears in front of my face and it's driving me nuts. Anyway, I want to focus today on 3 bad habits that I think either unconfident or inexperienced or just sometimes bad leaders display. And these are all traits and habits that I have displayed regularly in my life, and I'm trying my best to not do as much. These 3 bad habits are the tendencies to correct, fix, or convince people. Correct, fix, convince. CFC, correct, fix, convince. So let's start with correction. Someone says something online and you feel like you have to correct it. It doesn't line up with what you think or all the stuff that you know. Or someone says something in a conversation and you go, that's not what I think. And what you hear is, that's not right, I better fix it. It's my responsibility somehow to make that person think more the way I think. And it's ugly behaviour, it's corrective in all the wrong ways. Now there is good and healthy correction. The Bible talks about the correction we get from wisdom in Proverbs. It talks about the correction that comes from Scripture in Timothy. But this is repentive correction that is designed and motivated by a desire to see you become more in love with Jesus. So our instinctive and sometimes obsessive habit to correct things that don't line up with our worldview is not a good look for a leader. Often the difference is between suggestion and correction. So suggestion is placing something on the table and saying, hey, what about this? Correction is using that thing to bash their thing off the table. And again, not healthy for a leader to do. The second thing is fixing it. Someone comes to you with a struggle or a problem or an issue, and your immediate instinct is to fix it, to see it as a solution to be solved or a puzzle to be worked out, rather than a person to be helped and journeyed with. Now that doesn't mean don't offer advice. You should offer good and helpful advice, but only after you have properly taken in the person's experience as different to your own or different from an abstract problem. I think sometimes it's our habit to fix things that makes people not trust us in the first place. Again, there is an emphasis in the Bible on healing and growth and sanctification, but that doesn't necessarily mean fixing, especially if by fixing you mean put this into a formula and get this out of it. If you do these 4 things, you'll get better. Well, maybe. So that's correcting and teaching. The third one often surprises people, and that's convincing. I put to you, there is nothing in the Bible anywhere that tells us our job is to convince people of what we think. It tells us in Peter to give a reason for the hope that we have. We're told to make disciples in the Great Commission, and we're told that God's existence is plain through natural revelation. But we are never told to convince people. There's a world of difference between offering and sharing and preaching and proclaiming and evangelizing with persuasion and trying to convince people. You see, the difference between offering someone the gospel and sharing with them and trying to convince them of it is how much room do you leave them to take responsibility over their own faith and life. Often the convincing leader is trying to take responsibility over somebody else's faith journey, and that's not healthy. And that's the kind of behaviour that makes a leader less approachable, less useful, less compassionate, and frankly less trustworthy for a lot of people. So there's some thoughts, all things I struggle with, all things I'm trying to help and correct in myself. Correct. So correction, fixing, convincing, not things for a leader to work on. Instead, work on confidence, work on clarity, and work on having a faith that's so grounded, but it's not fearful. I think often these things come from fear of our own faith, that we don't have enough foundation in our faith, that we feel like if we don't convince everyone else of what we believe and fix everything in a way it makes sense to us and correct stuff that doesn't seem to be right, that somehow our faith will establish holes. I think if we're really honest, these behaviours come from fear rather than faith and confidence. So let's have confidence in Him, let's let Him be who He is, let's let people take responsibility over their own faith and do what we're called to do, which is confidently and clearly and compassionately proclaim the gospel and share our lives with people. That's it from me. Hopefully that's helpful, food for thought, and I'll see you next time.